All right. Whew. Well, that was a meeting.
Welcome back.
So, for those just joining us, we're back here at the studio following a meeting that we just had with SMUD. SMUD stands for Sacramento Municipal Utilities District. They somebody at SMUD had the brainchild that they were going to try and put the kibosh on battery adoption by charging all new solar customers, I think it was $8 a kilowatt for the production they had on their roof. No rhyme or reason behind it, no, true justification. The lame reason that they gave for it was that the back and forth on the grid was a problem. They didn't mention the duck curve. They didn't mention anything that somebody could have said, oh, okay, so we do understand the problem. In other words, it's placing a strain on peaker plants, to try and keep up with the demand. You've all seen in the videos that we've produced already on the duck curve where their issue is that in the evening, in the morning too, but in the evening especially, when the sun is going down and you wind up having this decrease in your solar production, all the power plants then have to ramp up because everybody's coming home at night. They're all, turning the stove on, turning the microwave on, turning the AC or the heat on, and so it becomes a problem with AC, obviously in summer, mostly peak times. So instead of giving us anything that we could kind of hang our hat on so that we could, help them out with it, they just decided that they were just going to do it arbitrary and say, oh, well, it's the back and forth. Well, that would be fine, except that they didn't offer a battery exemption. Oh, if you have batteries in your home, don't worry about this charge. This is only for the fact that we're having this problem with the grid matching the duck curve. If they'd have said that, then everything would have been hunky-dory. And it's fine even for them to make a mistake and say, okay, well, we thought that we were going to go ahead and get past this by charging everybody $8 a kilowatt, and then come to the shocking realization that you're going to war with the customers that are not your problem. In other words, the battery, and then say, okay, well, we made this terrible mistake. We didn't think about the batteries. We're going to go ahead and pull this all back. So the reason that I'm framing this beginning of this recap of this terrible meeting in that way is because they caved. Well, they caved because in 1 week's time, they got over 1,000 emails, all of them saying the same thing. What were you thinking? And so we just went to this meeting, even though we knew that SMUD had caved. And when I say we, I mean Edmund, he made a special trip up here. I asked him to come on up. Say hi, Ed.
What up?
You met his voice in the last video where he had that brilliant suggestion to leave on the little B-roll outtake thing that we had on there. Anyway, so Edmund came up and we were preparing to go to this meeting, and then we found out that they caved under pressure. Well, again, the reason that I couched this in the way that I did was that they never admitted fault. All they did was they saw the pitchfork-wielding peasants with torches come up to the gates, and they closed the gates and retreated inside. They never admitted that it was that they screwed up, that what they were doing was based on nothing but greed, really, or let's not say greed, let's say fear. I think fear is more appropriate, yeah? But I think that's giving them the benefit of that doubt. But the Wannsee Conference was more than just a bad idea. The Wannsee Conference, by the way, being the meeting of all the Nazis where they formed the basis for the final solution. That wasn't just a bad idea, that was based on bad intent. And so these SMUD board, the SMUD board of directors, these guys, it's their job to have their finger on the pulse of all of this and to understand where this is all going, and to have them attack battery power like that. It was shocking. It was just shocking. I don't even know what else to say, really. I was very disappointed that they had taken that tack. Everybody was. It was a wonderful meeting, by the way. Ed and I, we had a fantastic time watching everybody. They did open the meeting to comments. Now, again, crafty, right? You know, because they pulled this as a topic of discussion, they didn't have the guts even to leave it in for the proper meeting. They pulled it from the meeting, and so consequently, because this all came, everybody testified as commentary after the close of the meeting, that exempts them then from having to report any of that commentary. If one went to the SMUD website, I don't even know if any of that commentary would be on there aside from what was said, you know, during the regular meeting. And so I just, you know, the bureaucracy angle, I have no experience with that.
How did the meeting come about? What started it?
Yeah, well, so SMUD, we'll put up some screenshots here when we edit this together, so you can all kind of follow the bouncing ball. SMUD released a PDF document that outlined what their new rates were going to be. And then included in that rate was a section that I could best paraphrase as saying, our customers are our biggest problem. You know, and so what they did was they flat out attacked the customers that had solar as saying, oh, well, you use the grid in ways that nobody else uses the grid, and so therefore you should be punished. I can't sugarcoat it. I just can't sugarcoat it, because that's exactly what it said. And it just throws by the wayside the fact that if you have solar on your house and you go outside your house in the middle of the day when your output is cranking and you're sending a whole bunch of power out to the grid, and you look around your neighborhood to see how many of your neighbors don't have solar. Well, every kilowatt that you're sending out that line, it's not really going to SMUD. It's going to your neighbors that don't have solar, that aren't putting out to the grid. And every one of your neighbors is paying peak rate power for the power you're sending out that line. That was just part of the pact. I'm not crying over the fact that I'm credited per kilowatt hour, and so then basically the grid is acting as a big battery for me, and while I'm doing this, then I'm helping them out. I knew I was helping them out. That's why I did this whole thing to begin with. But what they're scared to death over is the batteries. The fact that people might store that power instead of sending it out to the grid, that they might store that power locally so that then they can put it back into their car, and so then they never get a chance to charge that kilowatt hour fee to all of the local consumers at a higher rate. It's a very similar thing to the bank when they calculate your interest. they calculate it out to the 10th of a penny. The gas stations do the same thing. Well, that 10th of a penny doesn't go away. You know, it accumulates. You know, it is an actual wealth-based thing. And so I think that from reviewing that document, it seemed what happened is that they had built that cost model into their bottom line. Became a part of their business model. And it's going away. And they know it's going away. And so then they're going to have to figure out how to cover that shortfall somehow.
Yeah, that's the whole fear aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
The future kind of coming so fast for them that they were just like,
yeah,
it's here.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Yeah. Mind-boggling. And so I think that, you know, if I worked for them, I would be looking very closely at any installation like the Energy Sovereignty Project, even if I had to create it for them myself. They mentioned, I guess, that they were doing some kind of a pilot program with batteries, right? They were very cagey about it, very kind of black ops, and nobody in the room knew anything about it. And one Asian gal was kind of funny, you know, when she sprung it on everybody, you know. I immediately thought, so now it's SMUD that's going to solve your problems. You know, here we come to save the day. You know, yeah. So, and it's fine if they do that to ensure that low-income people that can't afford 6 freaking power walls, if that's a way to get that in their house and get that ability local so that it relieves stress from the grid, lets them charge their electric vehicle maybe, because we all know that's coming as a huge cost savings to everyone. But I think there's a, you know, as I mentioned in the meeting there, I get a little rebuttal about the, you know, the danger of that is in if we allow the utility to be our savior and they come in and do this, if they can make a business model for it by charging X amount a month on that bill to make a profit, not only install those batteries, but then to long-term make a profit over it, then they may enact legislation to make it so that you can't have your own batteries.
Like a death pact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then that, you know, that kind of stuff makes it very difficult to sell your house, and, you know, as opposed to if you own all of your own equipment, it makes it very easy to sell your house. Right now, if I were to sell that place, I could easily charge what I paid for the system and then some in excess of, in this case, I'm into that system because of all the rebates and the tax incentives. I'm into that system for about $56,000 or something like that. I could easily add $80,000 to the cost, to the price of that house, and there would be a line of people to pay for that house with no utility bill for 20 years. You know, so, you know, it is what it is. I was very disappointed, like I said, that they took the tack that they did. If they, and again, I think I might have mentioned this in some previous videos, that I made the decision early on that the Energy Sovereignty Project is not a hit piece. It is not designed to be a hit piece. I've been very critical of some aspects of the Tesla Powerwall. There are certain things that need to be improved on, but I think that everybody can see that I've treated that very fairly. I have treated Sunworks, our installer, very fairly. And they knew coming into it. I asked them, I was like, are you ready to run with scissors? Because that, you know, that's what this is, right? This is in front of God and everybody. I don't want, you know, I'm This isn't designed to be any kind of an attack on anybody, but as we move forward, if SMUD doesn't step up to the plate, if our utility provider doesn't step up to the plate, I'm going to crucify them. But on the opposite, if they do, then I will run the SMUD flag up the flagpole and salute it and tell everybody how wonderful they are. And to this point, they've been mediocre. I give them some rope because I understand that this is all very new. And there are some things that they just don't know. But they do have their own battery program. So they do have these resources that they can draw from. But things like making me put a 400 amp service to the house. When my house has become a giant UPS system, uninterruptible power supply. Really? So, and as we just did Edmund and I were just messing around, and earlier today we kicked on the air conditioning system. So you'll see that as a little short too. That was a little bit of a knuckle biter, I knew it was gonna work. So you know how it is.
So SMUD would, they're scared, but so this battery system you're talking about for them?
I don't know anything about it. Nobody does.
That's their whole pilot thing, right?
That's their pilot thing, yeah.
So they might not even know necessarily what it is.
True. I don't know I don't know how much capacity they've given to people. It sounds like it's something like a Powerwall. That's what it sounds like. But again, that's just speculation. I don't know. 1 Powerwall, 2 Powerwall. I doubt it would be 3. Wouldn't be 3.
Would they? What options that you could think of would they have to shift into to adapt and not and get out? They were scared and they made this really bad decision with a bad excuse. So what's their options?
Well, at this point, it's tough, right? Because again, this isn't a hit piece, but when there's 2 ways that this goes. When we showed up today, if SMUD had said, hey, we made this mistake about the batteries, we're going to rethink this, and in the future it will include a battery exemption. That would tell me that somebody from their battery program spoke to them and said, hey, this is the thing. If that would have been the case, this kind of a debrief conversation that we're having right now would look very different. It would be me talking about emerging technology and how we need to do our best to ensure that we educate our utility providers and blah, blah, blah. And I would have just sung their praises in the everybody makes mistake category. But that's not what happened. What happened is the pitchfork wielding peasants with the pitchforks showed up with torches, and they closed the gates to the castle, and they retreated inside. The board members didn't even sit in the seats, right? So that was odd. Here we have this meeting, and board members, I was informed, were there because the empty seats there, that was going to be a point that I was actually going to make when I came up, but somebody else had pointed out, oh no, they're here. So I don't know how many of them were here. I don't know. I expect Judas was probably gone. Whoever championed the idea that they were going to go ahead and try and crucify their solar customers. So, back to the castle analogy. They filled the moat, pulled up the drawbridge, shut the gates. And so there are the peasants. And the sad thing is that they were, most of them, again, well-mannered, well-brought up. But the sad thing is that they were still there with their hat in their hand. oh, thank you to, well, I want to thank the board of directors of SMUD for pulling back this really bad piece of, no, no. And that's what I said when I got up there. I'm not going to say thank you to anybody.
I'm not here to thank
I don't feel
anybody.
thankful. I'm sitting here with my torch and my pitchfork until you throw me a head. I want a head to come over that wall, because they did not back off and say we made a mistake. They didn't own it. They just went inside their castle until they can figure out how to do it next time in such a way that people can't stop it. That's all.
So is this kind of a sign?
Well, I lost our B-roll.
Is this kind of a sign of like the how unprepared, or how unprepared certain parts of all this, transfer into the new
Yeah.
energies are, people are just, it's coming so fast that they aren't ready for it?
Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, obviously it's coming very fast, but I think that they really aren't ready for the answer. And again, I alluded in that little comment there when I talked about, maybe you guys should really be thinking not about expanding your system, but about dismantling it. And that one day you can run the entire thing with a well-fed hamster in a wheel. How much power are we going to need when every home is doing what we're doing? Right? In the winter months, again, we'll be able to put hard numbers on this. I don't like giving the numbers that we have right now. I think I can make highly accurate extrapolations knowing when we started, how far we were from solar minimum, which was only 8 days or something like that. It was we started on the 1st, and I think solar minimum was I think it was the 21st, something like that. And so it's really easy to make those extrapolations and say, this is how much. But I don't want to do that. I want to let the Energy Sovereignty Project play out before I deliver those hard numbers, because the hard numbers are what they are, and everybody who's following along is seeing those as they develop. But to your question, yeah, they're not ready for this. They're not ready for this at all. They understand that it's coming, and I'm sure that they've done their own experiments. They have to have. I hope they are. I mean, that's obviously what we require of a public utility, that they understand emerging technology. Do I think that they've examined it to the level of the Energy Sovereignty Project? No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody's done that. I think that the only people that have done that are the few other channels that I've seen where folks are running electric vehicles and batteries, and they're showing the reduction in their utility bill and that kind of a thing. But even in those instances, I don't think nobody that I'm aware of anyway has broken it down to the day and kilowatt hour and miles on the vehicle like we have. I think that by the time that the Energy Sovereignty Project has played itself out for the year, I think we'll have some really good data for that. But yeah, no, I don't think they're ready. I don't think they're ready at all.
And they need someone like SMUD is needed. I mean, they wouldn't go out of.
No, and again, I want to stress that, and I think I have in a lot of the comments that I'm not against the public utilities. I do feel that the grid is necessary. I do feel also that there are areas where the grid is not necessary. I mean, I think that things like motorhomes, camping, that kind of a thing, or if you're in an unincorporated area. That these battery solutions still exist. If I had a cabin in the middle of freaking nowhere, I'm still able to pull what I'm able to off of sunlight. I can still charge my car fully and drive up to, in my case, 260 miles back to civilization. You know, some of these EVs are over 300-mile ranges. I'm hoping to at some point improve the range of mine when they come out with a new battery. I'd like to be able to get the range up on mine without having to buy a new vehicle. Again, that's I'm foreshadowing future content. We'll be taking a look at our test vehicle. It's a Tesla Model S90D, the 2 motors, but it's a standard model. I wanted to go with the longest range possible, and that's been a very interesting vehicle. I'll have a lot to say about that when I finally do the review on it. But there's a lot of future proofing that's going on with the technology now, both with the home batteries and the batteries in the vehicles and the vehicles themselves. And so it's not just SMUD that doesn't have a clue what to do. There's a lot of other industries that don't. They're not ready. They're not ready for this at all. I don't know how long. We're
already at about 30, close to 30.
I was going to say, I don't know how long people just want to sit here and listen to my dumb ass hanging. Have to bleep that out now. Shouldn't have done that. They'll demonetize me.
What else can we get into here? I think that we covered what the base.
It's the basic of the meeting, yeah. Thank you for your input being there. You were a big help there. Thanks for coming up on such short notice. That was very helpful. But I'm glad. Obviously on one level, I'm glad that they pulled that very terrible idea. It would have added $80 a month to the Energy Sovereignty Project, bringing our total to $100 a month for the privilege of using no electricity. That's just shocking to me.
I was thinking earlier, that's such a way of like showing their cards or putting their foot in their mouth or shooting themselves in the foot, like they
all of the above.
like,
simultaneously.
all of it. It's so weird for them to it's just a weird decision on their end.
It was and shocking. You saw how many people showed up there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a full house. How often does that happen? So, yeah. Well, again, hopefully they learn their lesson and they won't think to do that ever again. But I just can't help but think that they're locked away in that castle planning.
Yeah, that's the last thing I was going to bring up is that, because in being there, I could see that there was also a constructive aspect, at least a little bit, in the air, and maybe all of this conversation and some of these people that are upset, we were talking about earlier how there was kind of like a wavelength or a 1 to 10 of calm to upset questions and comments, but maybe that this will like wake them up and that they'll be like, okay, we got to get on our A game here and make it work.
I hope so. Yeah.
So is that
I mean, I it's difficult to write because again, there's that nagging thing where if they had come out and said, "Oh, we made a mistake. We didn't do a battery exemption," then I would be like, "Woohoo! We're done. We're done here. Good work, everyone. Our job is done." But that didn't happen, and so they still know.
They have to re-strategize.
Yeah, they still know that the batteries are a disaster for them.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to recoup, and so now, here I am. I'm.
Well, that's the reason I asked earlier if they were needed. Obviously, they are because they're a utilities company. But I mean, is there say every freaking buddy adopted batteries and I mean, you know.
Well, so the problem there is that it's a summer game, and it is not practical that people would have enough overage installed on their house to cover their winter shortfall. I bet I could probably, and again, maybe next year I'll do this. I'll install a solar portico. But as a guess, I would say that I would need an additional 5 to 8 kilowatts of solar production, well placed, to be able to say I can get through winter, right? But Jesus, really 20 kilowatts of production? Christ, I'll have to shut over half of that off during the summer, right? What the hell? What am I going to do with all that extra power? Am I just going to shove it out the lines? They're already ready to crucify everybody for what they're doing already, supposedly, right? I can only imagine what that would do to the duck curve. But I suppose that, at that point, to answer your question, that should everybody be able to do that, then you'd be able to turn the grid off, and you wouldn't be talking about even having a grid. We'd be talking about laws enacted that allow everybody to completely self-generate, and so then all they would have to prove is that they weren't creating a blight. Because now that's an interesting thing too. I think you and I had this conversation a while back. Boy, this is now going to turn this into an hour-long video. So most places in the nation, if not everywhere in the nation, have laws stating that if you're in an incorporated area, in other words, if you're in a city-type area or a township, you're not allowed to go off of the grid. You're not allowed not to have grid power to your house. Now that sounds shocking and oppressive, and aren't we a free nation? And I can already see the conga line of people that want to make that argument. But what you have to remember is that those laws date back to the 20s and 30s, right? When power became available. Now, was that a hardship for these people to then be forced to have electric power to their house? Well, obviously, yes and no. I mean, it is in that you have to pay for it, but it was a way of uplifting everybody.
And integrating everybody into the...
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, we're not a pure capitalist society. We're not a socialist society. We are a happy hybrid, and we try to very carefully limit the things that we mandate. All right, not just California. This is nationwide we're talking now. So any of the California haters out there, apparently we have quite a few of those. This is a national thing that I'm talking about now. But it was a way of uplifting the entire nation by ensuring that everybody got electricity to their homes, and by making it so that, just like running water, they're not going to give you a permit to live in a home if it doesn't have running water, electricity, blah, blah, blah. But it may be time to revisit those laws. If we do get to a point where, we have a Mr. Fusion, and you're throwing your garbage in to be turned into electricity, and the batteries in your garage store it, and we can go out and pet our unicorn and all of that. But yeah, the current status of solar is that it's just not practical for everybody to produce 100% of what they need through solar, no matter how many batteries they have.
So I guess this is why they call it disruptive.
Certainly, yeah. Absolutely. Very disruptive. I mean, anybody who's been following along the Energy Sovereignty Project, can see, what's going on with, especially with the vehicle. I brought that up when that one gal had mentioned about the batteries. They were trying to use that as an excuse for why nobody would want batteries in their house. They're so expensive. No, your rate of payback, it won't make it work. Well, if that's true, why are you doing it? Is it really just to get rid of the duck curve? Or is it that your rate of payback is actually better because you're planning on them seeing a reduction in the rates that you're charging because they have batteries that you are getting the rent from? So at some point, their business model has been made, right? And that they are doing that. Shut up. She didn't mention the comparison between electricity and gasoline. How did she miss that? Isn't that her job? She's the head of that battery program, isn't she? How could But she's certainly willing to tell everybody in the room that that the rate of the return on investment is going to exceed the life of the equipment.
Yeah. Is there a way for anyone that might be tuning in for the first time to give a quick briefing on what the duck curve is?
Yeah, well, actually, we have a pretty good video of it
Really?
on there. Yeah.
I should know that.
Yeah, I guess you should know that. You should watch watching my videos. No, I mean, so the Vox, one of the YouTube monsters, they've done very well for themselves, and the videos that Vox produces are generally very well researched and very well presented. And the video, for those who, as Edmund had said, for those who are just watching this, maybe this is your first video of some idiot relaxing here and shooting his mouth off. There is a video that Vox did called the Duck Curve Solar's Greatest Challenge. And though I like what Vox produces, I had a problem with this particular video because they didn't mention the elephant in the room. They kept talking about the duck curve, but they never once mentioned batteries except at the very, very end of the video. And then they mentioned it in such a way that, similar to that gal at the meeting, where their insinuation was that it was a problem that the utility companies need to solve. That we then need to pay extra on our utility bill so that they can make these massive battery installations somewhere to save us all from the duck curve. And I found that very annoying, given what I already knew about the energy sovereignty project before even any of the equipment was installed. That was even why we were doing it, was because we knew that we'd be able to flatten this consumption, not over a period of hours, where we have 1 or 2 Powerwall 2s, you can get past the evening without drawing any power. And so then, if you look at it in that term, unless you have a cloudy day or a couple of cloudy days, your consumption will be relatively low and even. But as you add more capacity, then you're not talking about hours anymore. Now you're talking about smoothing out that duck curve over a period of days. And so, yeah, I'll show you that video later on today, where I made a point of showing what the duck curve looks like. And also, you heard me mention at the meeting where I said that the peak times of the year will switch. Because you're having so much production during summer, everybody's batteries are filled, and even in some points of the summer, even with a family driving 125 miles a day with their electric vehicle, they're still keeping up. and still drawing no power from the grid. All right. And so, again, energy sovereignty project, as it plays out, your mileage will vary. You'll be able to then look at what we did, look at the feedback, and go, okay, since my family, both me and my wife work, both of us do, 50 miles a day, what will our shortfall be? Our house is about the same size, and, all of that. And so that's my hope is that, the Energy Sovereignty Project will be able to be used by everybody as a tool. They'll be able to log in for years and see what we did and realize that the equipment doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when this was done, that I did it early with, Powerwall 2s, when everybody will laugh at me in 7 years, when they have something that'll do the same thing that's the size of a toaster. So I don't know. But the fact will remain that we identified that for a house using 30 kilowatt hours a day, you need somewhere between 10 and 15 kilowatts of solar production, and somewhere between 60 and 90 kilowatt hours of battery storage. So what else do you say about that? And then that supports 1 or 2 cars with, somewhere around 50 or so average miles a day of driving on sunlight. The rest of it you'll have to pay for and figure out where you're going to get the power. This isn't a perfect solution. It's simply one that's available to us. So, are you all done?
Good stuff.
It'd be fun to do one of these and just keep going. Like my mother used to love watching this evangelical pastor named Dr. Gene Scott. And he would get up there in his chair, and his favorite thing to say is, "Am I boring you?" Just do these 2-hour videos and then watch the histographics, right? Watch the feedback, the analytics that YouTube gives you, and we'll see at what point we just lose everybody. All right, that's it. That far, no further. That's how we'll design our YouTube videos with feedback. So, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of my post-SMUD meeting rant. And we will intersperse this with some meaningful content for you to read while we're editing this up. And I really hope that some of the content that we provide to you and some of the rationale that we feel SMUD was implementing, what they were reacting to, if you feel that this applies to your own area. Hawaii, I feel your pain, guys. I don't have any words for what you guys are going through. Vermont is going through a similar thing right now, where there's this huge attack on solar customers. And so all I can say is that we need to use this as a model to understand what their arguments are and how to combat those arguments. So good luck to all of you and your systems, and thank you for tuning in to the Energy Sovereignty Project.